Welcome back to Morning Cup. I am so thrilled today because I have Yami with me. Yami graduated from Culinary Arts, worked in the food industry for about 7 years. Then she started working with her sister on side projects that started with meal plans, nutritional consultations, cooking classes, and then the pandemic gave them one thing that stuck: their coconut cold brew coffee. Thank you so much for being here today, Yami.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I am so excited to have you here today. One, because I'm obsessed with coffee. So it's like, I have to have them on. But I love that you are representing you and your sister today and just the brand that you've created. But I would love to know, how did you get here today? What has been your journey?
It has been really, really long, to be honest with you. I feel like I can't even remember the first thing that we started doing together. I think it was maybe about, I don't know, I think 6 years now, when we were very into CrossFit, and we were working out like crazy. And at that point, the meal plan thing was like a thing, and it was booming. And we couldn't find like one that will fit our like specific needs. And my sister graduated from nutrition. I did culinary, but everything was kind of like the same thing over and over and over again. So we decided to do meal plans for our box or our gym. And that's how our journey started together. We then realized that it's put into plastic containers and people are just putting it, like opening it, putting it in the microwave. It is not necessarily the best thing for you. At the end of the day, the meal prep stops, the meal prep service stops, and then everything else goes with it. So it was not really purposeful. Same thing goes with the waste and like the plastic containers and how you shouldn't microwave these things, etc. So I think that's when we realized we wanted to do a little more and educate people. So coming from the other way around. So after that, we decided to do like little snacks. We did snacks, and it was the same thing. We were selling them to gyms. It was okay, but it was nothing like out of the ordinary. So then we did the nutrition consulting. So my sister would give them consulting, and then I would give them like a small like recipe book and like teach them how to cook it and say like, hey, like if it's coming from your kitchen, it's maybe better than getting it from elsewhere, like having a meal plan or something along those lines. That was good. And I think we wanted to stick with that. So we went to an agency or like a marketing agency. We wanted to build out something like an app, because then it was very, very, there was so much energy that it took to have, let's say, one client, and then that client is texting you 24/7 asking you if this food is good or not, or like, am I grocery shopping right, or am I doing this thing? And so it was very time consuming. So we were like, okay, maybe we can have this if we have like an app or something where people can like feel free to reach out like through there and have like guidelines, etc. So it's something more robust where the two of us don't have to physically be answering these questions or like on a daily basis. So we did that. And then once we went to this agency, which is called El Autobus back in Miami, still love them very, very much. We went through like two to 3 days brainstorming. And they were like, what are your goals? Like, what do you ambition the company to be? What are the things that you really want to do if money wasn't an issue? So we went with this like very wide brainstorming of like what we really wanted to do. And we came out with the cooking classes. So that's how it turned out. We didn't even like really like think about it and said like, oh, this is it. It was a matter of like that brainstorming, figure it out. Like we were figuring it out ourselves, what we really wanted to do, which was teaching people how to cook and like nourish themselves in a good, helpful way. So that's how the classes came about. And then it feels like a long, long time from now. So once the classes were a thing, we loved them, and I still think like till this day, it's something that we would love to bring back at some point. COVID definitely killed it. And the coffee came out of the classes. Mm-hmm. So we were still working full-time jobs, like both of us. My sister was working like three jobs at the time. I was a manager at a bakery. So all of our schedules were like completely insane. And we were running the cooking classes like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I believe. So it was on top of everything else that we were already working for. And the coffee was something that we made for ourselves just because we legitimately needed it. And we didn't have the time to like make coffee in the morning or make coffee at any point. So the cold brew is something that you just put in the fridge and leave it, and then you wake up and pour out of it.
Love that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you've done so much, but I love your journey of just how it's really unfolded in such a beautiful way, starting with like just the meal planning and prepping and having that, and then the nutritional consultations, and just realizing too how much people need, or like, do I eat this? Do I not eat that? I was just like thinking, I was like, that would totally be me.
Yeah.
But because I love nutrition, but I also love learning about it. But I love that you started incorporating cooking classes, because I think that's something so important for people to realize, especially with inflation now, where like they can make things at home, or the pandemic obviously killed it, but being able to recognize you used your resources and everything you had, the knowledge base, to start doing something that just unfolded so naturally with the cold brew as well. And I mean, I'm a big coffee drinker, so I get that, but having something of convenience. And so I would love for you to really dive into like, what was that process like with the cooking classes, like doing everything you were doing, working multiple jobs. How did you manage all of that with, of course, drinking coffee, but then we'll get into the coffee part, but how did you manage all of that?
It was insane, to be honest. Like, we weren't doing anything else than working.
Yeah.
The cooking classes weren't or at least like it wasn't giving us enough for us to say like, well, I'm gonna work part-time so that we can have this going. They were very, very pricey, and so we needed like to cap, let's say, a max of 8 to 10 to 12 people in one single class for it to be profitable. And like sometimes we had like a 2-people class, a 4-people class, and something along those lines. And so it was something that we wanted to continuously pursue and be persistent, because then like if we didn't have the classes, or if they were like 1 week on, 1 week off, then like you're still not gonna see any type of, I guess, reward. So we wanted to maintain it as consistent as possible, but it wasn't profitable and not enough people knew about it. So that's the one thing that kept like our full-time jobs always full-time.
Yeah, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, there's like this misconception that people just go all in and focus on their business, but there's so much behind the scenes of understanding like working full-time or having side gigs in order to do what you're so passionate about. You might be passionate about what you're doing work-wise, but the drive is for like something bigger, that purpose. And I love that you highlighted that, because I think it's not talked about enough, where there is like, there's more to it. There's more layers to it. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and moving into the coffee, because obviously that was helping you function essentially with everything you were doing. But what was that drive to actually start it as a business?
The coffee, I think we didn't even think it was going to be just coffee. When we launched it, it was going to be like the Sisteryard branch per se. Like we were envisioning doing like 5 to 6 products, which like right now we still have like at hand, and we like, wow, how funny was it to say like, oh yeah, we're gonna have like 5 products at a time, and like one of them just took over completely. And it was just insane to even say like, oh, we're gonna have a second product. I would not do it right now. But yeah, I don't think it wasn't meant to be just coffee. What we were trying to do is say like, okay, the cooking classes are going to be shut down for like a small amount of time, because COVID is going to happen like very quickly. And then we're going to like bring the classes back up, and this is going to be something that we can sell on top of the classes. They say like something like a dip or like a marinade or whatever you may call it. But it was going to be something like, we wanted to start with a coffee and then do more of like things that you were put in your pantry per se.
That's a good point. And I'm curious, how did you come up with the name, the Sisteryard?
Well, because we were literally teaching classes out of our backyard.
And
that was the brainstorm at this place, that we were just coming up with names, and it was like literally a whole whiteboard of names and everything. We wanted it to say sister, because I think it's something very important that the two of us are in business together. So it was all kinds of like rhymes and weird like combinations with sister. And then it came about like, okay, but really, where is the place where you teach them? And it's a backyard.
I love that, how it just so seamlessly came together. And I'm curious, because you do work with your sister, what has that been like working with her and building this brand together?
Honestly, it has grown, like the growth of our own personal relationship through the brand has been like immense. I think like we have not been like the most communicative part or pair. And with the business, it's something that we've been forced to do. And now, like, yeah, our personal relationship has been so much better since. I think we leave egos aside and see like these are the things that need to be done, and like what are you putting up? Like, what do you need to do? What do I need to do? And like if something like, just having opinions of our own and saying like, or going with each other's, I don't know how to even put it into words. Like if she says something and I'm not gonna think or argue about it, it's like, okay, we're gonna do it your way, and nobody's gonna argue about like what things are being done.
I think you're like almost forced to really communicate effectively, especially like with business, because one decision can shift things, whether it's good or not so good. But I love that it like brought you closer, because a lot of times, just from my experience and hearing from other people as well, sometimes it can put a rift in relationships when you work together. But I love that it brought you closer together as well as you were building. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that story with us.
No, I think we bumped heads a lot at the beginning, and then we realized it was so much harder, or like it took that much longer for things to get done if we keep arguing. So it's like, okay, I'll take this one and you'll take the next one, or like we're gonna agree right in between, but it's gonna have to be like a quick turnaround versus like me being mad at you all day and then like things still need to be done.
Right, exactly. So it's like you two versus the situation versus like coming at it from different angles as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so as you started to build your brand and it's continuing to grow, I know it's been growing rapidly. What has been some of the roadblocks in that process of building a brand?
There have been many, most definitely. I don't know, one that comes off the top of my head would probably be scaling. Like it's very difficult to scale well, how do you say it? The DTC? So it's a customer packaged good. So it's a CPG product. For it to be a CPG product, there are very enormous like milestones that you have to meet in order to grow. For example, now, like right now, we are still like self-bottling, self-producing, and doing all these things out of our own kitchen. For us to start distributing, we will have to start like producing, let's say, a minimum of like 3 pallets at a time and shipping it like from like coast to coast. And like if we want to get like more of a wholesale pricing on bottles or caps or shipping materials, it's gonna have to be like hundreds of thousands, and it just keeps on going from there in any way that you try to grow. So it's just a very difficult road of the whole CPG line, and I think we weren't even trying to go there. We just happened to be.
Yes, and I'm curious, like even with the roadblocks of just like building and the manufacturers and everything that you need to produce in order to get to more distributors, I know you do a lot of markets and other factors too. What has that been like, getting into markets and being able to expose your product?
The roadblock there, I don't think there's a roadblock at all. It's just a matter of us like having the manpower and to do it. As of now, we're still the 2 only employees, if you were to say it, and it's not even that, because like employees will have a salary and we do not. But it's a matter of us just deciding to do it full time and seeing where it goes and just being everywhere all the time.
I believe it. And that's spoken like a true entrepreneur, right? Like there's a lot of groundwork that happens as you're building, but I know you've had success, and I would love for you to share just maybe 1 or 2 success stories with us of how you've really been able to get your product out there and seeing the results.
Well, the main success was moving to New York City for sure. We started in Miami and we moved to New York City. And we really didn't have a plan. We literally quit all our jobs and said like we're gonna move to New York City, and we didn't have anything lined up here at all. Rent just what happened to be cheaper here than Miami, and our lease was up in Miami. So one of our friends called us and said like, oh, I'm moving to New York City. Would you guys consider like being roommates, the 3 of us? And we were like, okay, yeah, like maybe that's crazy. So we started like maybe like planning it November of what was that? Like, that's been like 2 years, 20, I don't know, 2 years ago, 2020. And then we came here in March and we're like, okay, we're gonna go because we want our coffee to succeed or get somewhere. And maybe this is the time, like it happens to be that we always wanted to come here and this friend decided to move here. And then now we have the opportunity of coming with someone so we wouldn't have to take the burden of the whole apartment. So it kind of made sense. Still crazy, but it made sense. So we packed everything in a U-Haul and came here. We were jobless for maybe a month and a little. And we didn't have any savings. We didn't have absolutely anything. It was like crazy first month and a half. But then everything started like to click little by little. We were self-delivering in New York City. And I don't know. It's kind of blurry from there, but our coffee started making its way into New York City and Brooklyn rapidly.
I believe that, especially that's a hot spot, I would say. But I love that it just all worked out to the one friend was like, hey, I'm moving to New York and you've always wanted to move there. And it just all worked out at the same time. And it remind me correctly, you said 2020 is when you moved to New York?
Yes.
So during the COVID?
No, so 2020, we planned it 2021 because we got here in March of the following year.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that's pretty impressive.
It was in the middle of the pandemic because the pandemic started in 2020. And the coffee started in June and we moved here the following year in March where like the city was still absolutely dead.
Yeah. So how did you like move through that? Because the city wasn't like it was. Like my sister lives in New York and I saw the shift during COVID and I was like, oh my goodness. But how did you really continue to manage to have that success with everything going on in the city? Like what was that strategy essentially?
So I don't think there was any strategy at all. We were just trying to get coffee to wherever people would want coffee. We found out quickly that coffee shops will not partner with us because they have partnerships with their coffee beans per se. So let's say if I don't know, counterculture is offered at this bakery, then they're not allowed to sell another type of coffee beverage that is not made with counterculture coffee. So that was already a no-go, and I mean it's still like a roadblock per se. It's not as easy to put ourselves in other places if there are this type of partnerships, of coffee partnerships being in place, which happens to be for restaurants, for coffee, for bars, etc. So that was already out the window, which was like, I think plan A. Plan B was always to do deliveries, but then how are we going to do deliveries if nobody knows who we are? So then it was something that like literally knocking on doors. And like at that point, we started just revamping Instagram, website. Like until this day, we still make our own or have made our own website. So we decided to, ramp up the website. We did it. We like redid it. We were trying to be persistent on Instagram, although we didn't have like the biggest following. We still had a pretty like decent following that was like very loyal. So I think people were posting and like at some point we literally stood in like Washington Square Park with like a banner saying free coffee, and we were giving out like one of our mini bottles. We were just trying to be out there and be where people would see us. And at that point, we met a person that was like a coffee aficionado per se, here in New York, and he happened to be opening a cafe, and he said like, oh, what if I put this year as part of my menu? We're like, okay, sure, why not? So at that point, we were selling gallons of our coffee. I think like maybe like 2 gallons a week to him, and that was like our one steady gig for the coffee, other than like just random people that already had coffee from Miami. When we were in Miami, we were doing shipping, and some people from Brooklyn were already ordering it. So those people were still getting it here, which like maybe like 3 or 4. And that's more or less what our sales looked like that year. They weren't major, they weren't huge, but that's when we were applying for Smorgasburg, which is the market, the outside market. So that was around June, July, and then we started the market October of that year.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. I love like the hustle of it, just pulling at straws, like, but you had a plan. It was just a matter of like pushing through certain things and just trying whatever like stuck, and it did. And it's like that persistence and consistency of like offering free samples with the sign in Washington Park and then running into somebody. And I think it's so like synchronized as well. Like we don't always see it in that moment, but there's always like a path, and it's just putting in the work. And you both have been putting in the work for a long time in different aspects, and it really came together. And I love hearing those stories as well. But I would love to know, what are maybe 2 or 3 tips as entrepreneurs, or particularly in your industry, that you could give budding entrepreneurs that are starting out?
I think it's very cliche, but taking no as an answer, never taking the no as an answer. I think that was the one big thing. We were told that coconut water and coffee would never work out. And here we are like 2 years and some later. It's still working out, and it's like will continue growing. But that's the main, like, never giving up type thing. I think if you're persistent enough and you're like, you know that it's not you being stubborn, it's you knowing that it's gonna work out and trusting your gut.
Yeah. I just had to give a moment of silence for that one, because I'm like, yes.
I guess.
So
yeah,
true.
I think it's like knowing yourself and knowing that it's not like, oh, I just want to be a stubborn head and say like this is gonna work out. It's just, you have to also make sure that those two are aligned, like your ego and like your right self, knowing that this is gonna work out, and it's not you just trying to prove people wrong.
Oh,
which
absolutely.
Also it's great, but
yeah. But it is true, because I mean, I know I'm extremely stubborn, but at the same time, it's when you know something has value and you can add value to people's lives, and you know it's something that's worth it, and putting in that time and energy. Sometimes there's things where you can know right away. It's like, okay, maybe not, but trusting yourself and having that consistency and persistence, I think, are so key. So I loved both of those tips. So thank you for sharing those. And so I want to know a little bit more about the coffee. I know it's Coconut Cold Brew Coffee, but can you describe it to somebody if they haven't tried it yet? What does it taste like? What is it? Tell us a little more.
Absolutely. So the Coconut Cold Brew came about because of the same reasons. We were still working out a lot. We were still working a lot. And we wanted something that would like give us the energy and it would taste good at the same time, versus like your typical stovetop coffee that is like great for people that like it. I'm not one of those people. Neither was my sister, and we're like, I'm not gonna buy, like, we wanted to buy an espresso machine, obviously that goes around like 6,000 plus, and it's like, okay, that's probably not gonna happen either. So we got into cold brew. We were buying every single cold brew out there. And then when you start getting into like fancy herb or say cold brew that is like vanilla or mocha or has any other type of flavoring or another type of bean, it starts getting very expensive. And then it has like 1,000,000 grams of sugar that are not needed in the coffee at all. So that's how we started playing with the coconut water, just because we wanted something that was like more helpful. And it was still not add like fake sugar per se. So now we have sugar, but it's going to be naturally sweetened with the coconut water. So if you're drinking coconut water, you're still consume that sugar. So we make toasted coconut chips that we bake in house. We mix those with the coffee grounds, and then we pour coconut water over it. And that gives you like a chocolatey, nutty, still very like strong. It gives you a strong taste of coffee, but it's like milder in a sense. So it's like strong coffee, but smoother. And I don't think it necessarily tastes like coconut. It's just, like very nutty.
Well, we gotta talk about how you can get this to Denver. I've been so enjoying this conversation, but we're going to jump into the rapid fire questions if you're ready for them.
All right.
The first question is, who is your hero?
I think my mom, from like just her coming or bringing us to this country and having all these opportunities that like we now have. Props to her for making it happen.
Yes, moms are the best, but especially I'm sure her journey as well has shaped both you and your sister.
Absolutely.
And what motivates you to work smarter?
I think my age now. I feel like I have a lot of goals in mind, and I feel like I want them to be somewhat aligned for, like, I don't know, let's say 5 years from now, like my life is together. I think I've worked in the industry, well, yeah, since I was 17, and now I'm 29. And I'm waiting to see the fruits of the labor.
It's coming. It's coming. It's on its way, or it's right there. And so if you were a superhero, what power or powers would you have?
Oh my God, I could to multitask even more than I do so now.
That would be a good one, and probably really necessary because you do a lot. So if you could share a meal with any four individuals, living or dead, who would they be?
Oh my God, that's a hard one.
Yeah,
I think at this point, my grandpa. I would like to pick at his entrepreneurial brain. He used to own like a bunch of companies back in the day, and I think I would like to pick at that.
That'd be a good one. Any other three?
Any other three? Nothing that can, off the top of my head, maybe like I would love to sit down with one of the Sweet Green founders. I think that will happen. But yeah, I would love to talk to somebody in the industry and see how they made it happen. And somebody else that I don't really have anyone off the top of my head right now.
Perfect. Well, it would be a really dynamic meal, at least with the three of you, bringing your sister too, I'm sure. And what is the most daring thing you've ever done?
I think moving to New York for sure, by far.
Yeah. It's very
it turned out great, but I think it could have like been really, really bad.
Well, I'm glad it's working out. And what is the phone app that you use the most?
Instagram, for sure. Unfortunately, yes.
Well, it's a great connector, right? You're able to connect with people and it gets your product out there as well.
Yeah, well, I've found myself more into it now that I have Sisteryard on it, because I'm not even on my personal account almost ever. But it's just, we have so many food accounts or CPG accounts or any other like entrepreneur that is on our Sisteryard Instagram, that it's just like, it's so much information all the time.
That is true. I'm like never on my personal either. It's always just my business one. So I get it. And what is the last book that you read or listened to?
The last book I read is, well, I'm reading now The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And the last one that I read was, I think, The Minimalist Entrepreneur.
Both excellent reads. And what is your favorite family recipe, whether it's one that you've created or your family, or it's just something you love to do together?
Oh my God, I think I have to go with like my grandma's chicken soup. It's one of the most ever evolving recipes, and it's still amazing.
Classic, traditional, amazing. I love it. And if you were to describe yourself as an animal personality type, what animal would you be?
I think it would be a lion. I'm very, very, very protective and very like, yeah, like passive aggressive or aggressive at times. Personality wise, I think like, yeah, protective.
That makes sense. It's like aggressive attacking the like deal or whatever is happening.
Yeah, I think I'm very passionate when it comes to like myself, my family, like my sister, the business. So anytime I feel like something it's out of like my control, it's like attack.
Hey, it makes sense. Protective is number one, especially for lion. And what is your favorite way to spend a day off? I don't know if you have a day off, but if you have a few hours off, how do you like to spend those?
I currently have a day off Mondays, and it's only been like, I think 2 or 3 weeks of having Mondays off, so it's amazing. All I've done is like do laundry and lay down.
That's it.
It's like, I don't even have a TV at the time, so it's like, okay, so what do I do? And then I just pass out again. So sleeping, like more than I sleep during the day or at all.
Well, sleeping is number one. It's like one of the number one health things that we can do for ourselves. So I'm glad you have Monday. um, so what is something an outsider wouldn't know about your industry?
How much work it really takes for us to put a product out there. Like I feel like it's not talked about, or it's not acknowledged, like acknowledged by consumers, how like what it takes for a product to be on the shelf, and what the costs and risks and physical labor that needs to be done in order for whichever product like to get to your table even. The same thing goes with like all of the hospitality, which I think it might be talking like I don't know, people might be talking about it now, but even like the person that's serving you the morning coffee, and how like some people disregard that's even a person, a human being, that it's maybe the first, second, third job of the day, and you know how like to be more communicative or more I don't know, just acknowledge the fact that people are working hard all day every day to make your cup of coffee.
Yes. I mean, I'm all for it. Like I told you, I am a coffee addict, but I think it's amazing what you've been able to create, you and your sister, and really just getting it out there. And I'm so glad we had the opportunity to have you on today. But where can people find your coffee? We're going to link everything below so everyone can connect with you. But if you could let us know too.
Absolutely. So you can find it everywhere as thesisteryard.com. That's going to be our main online ordering, which is our website. We are currently offering deliveries to Queens, Brooklyn, and everywhere in Manhattan. We are expanding shipping, and hopefully that's going to be on the next few days. And that's going to be around 21 states, I believe, at the time. Hopefully we're going to be expanding soon. But that's it. Or you can find us on Instagram as the Sisteryard, or TikTok. Yay.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Yami, for being on today, sharing your journey, your story with us. I am so excited. I know my family's in Miami or Florida, so I'm definitely gonna have that ordered to my house there until it gets to Colorado. Is Colorado one of the 21 states?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. We're gonna be in conversation. But
Absolutely.
thank you.
We can probably
so
make
much.
something happen.
Yes, absolutely. But thank you so much for coming on, just again, sharing your story, sharing your light. And just, I'm so excited for both you and your sister, and to see this company grow even more than it already has. But thank you again for your time. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from today? And I'm sure Yami would love to see your comment, and I know I would too. And we will see you on the next video.